The purpose of the most impressive scientific and statistical techniques discussed in the previous papers at this seminar has been to establish, for the period under review, the calendrical dates of archaeological deposits, particularly burials, and thus of the recurring groups of artifacts found within them. Numismatic chronology has a similar role in this area. It is based in the first instance on coins which bear dates in some established calendrical era or have been issued in the name of persons whose calendrical dates have been securely established by written records. Unfortunately, apart from the Roman imperial coinage, imperial Byzantine issues, and a limited number of contemporary regal coins, the issues found in early Anglo-Saxon archaeological contexts only rarely fall into this category and are, for the most part, internally undated. A relative chronology for the major and minor coin types has been built up for the early Anglo-Saxon period from a few dated coins, the overlapping contents of dated hoards found both in England and the continent, and from other associations of coins whose chronological position is uncertain, with more closely datable ones. Changes observed in weight standard and metal fineness also contribute to the refinement of the sequences, and secured dendrochronological dates provide valuable independent evidence. As in any academic discipline, the earlier evidence on which current numismatic chronologies are based have been regularly reviewed and is also frequently tested against the plentiful new finds. Although minor adjustments have been made here and there, the major periods of this chronology appear to numismatists to have remained fairly secure after such repeated reinvestigations. But they are, of course, open to amendment as required by new discoveries and research. Given the uncertainties involved in the numismatic dating process, changes of a few years would be acceptable to numismatists, but shifting the limiting dates by as much as 20 years could not be accommodated. That would require the wholesale redating of hoards both in England and on the continent, which numismatists do not consider the current coin evidence would allow. Numismatists can disagree among themselves and change their minds, of course, but currently their discussions are about the dates of the smaller series of coins within the major phases and the location of their mints, and not about the broad dating of the major phases themselves. Establishing the absolute chronology of individual coins and their associated groupings within the major periods is even more difficult, and numismatists have, perforce, to build up a dating scheme on evidence often inadequate in quantity and of varying reliability. Some considerations involve subjective judgments on such grounds as wear, or, in a period of declining metal fineness, visual assessment of the relative place of coins which have not been analysed within a series or a long reign. But most numismatists still believe that, where better evidence is not available, it is unhelpful to reject such valid, if inexact, pointers to date. Here may I break off to appeal to archaeologists to make metallurgical analysis of coin finds, especially gold, as much a matter of routine as recording their weights. I do, of course, appreciate the problem of the financial costs involved. Students of the coinage are fully aware that new evidence, both in our own field and elsewhere, could demand the alteration of our current numismatic models, and so do not claim for them either precision or finality. We are conscious of the outstanding contributions that science has already made to our subject, for example, in providing independent evidence from metallurgy and dendrochronology, and look forward to further help. We very much welcome the results of the project which prompted this seminar. They offer the prospect of precision dating of archaeological contexts which will provide a closer currency date for coins of uncertain issue date within these lengthy series. Some difficulties, however, remain, which will be discussed later. It is also essential that any terminus post quem utilised for dating a grave or other archaeological context is based on the latest coin that it pertains. As numismatists often cannot provide a secure Anno Domini date for the coins they believe to be the latest, scientists have chosen to use as a terminus post quem the latest historically dated coin to be present. Since in most of this period, as has been noted, few coins are historically datable, the latest coin is actually much less likely to be a historically dated one than one of the undated coins. Further, since the internal chronology of coin issues within long reigns at this period have not been established, the date of a coin present is less likely to belong to the initial year of the reign than it is to some later year within it. Thus, the use of an accession date may be up to 10 to 20 years too early for the example included in the grave. If, in addition, undoubtedly later coins which cannot be dated are present in the group, the chosen date could be too early by an even wider margin. To take an example, the scholars in the Anglo-Saxon Graves project chose to use the accession date of the king who issued the latest historically dated coin in the graves published in their sections 6 and 7 in the Hines and Baylis volume. For section 9, where the figures were to be directly compared with the numismatic dates proposed by myself, they were recalculated on the basis of the dates of the complete reign of the issue of the latest historically dated coins. But this did not deal with the problem arising from the use of a coin which was not the latest within the group. There is one additional factor which is crucial to the numismatic dating of the deposition of a coin or group of coins, and that is how long the latest coin had been in circulation since it was first issued. If the coin being used for dating purposes is not the latest coin present, the interval between the issue and deposition dates is even more crucial. It is rarely possible, numismatists admit, to suggest a precise date for deposition, but a narrower or wider bracket may be suggested depending on the date and type of the coin concerned. Clearly, a single coin usually presents a more difficult problem, and the associations of two or more coins increases the likelihood of an accurate estimation. The reasoning behind the Frankish and Anglo-Saxon numismatic chronologies, with the supporting evidence of overlapping boards and other considerations, were set out in my contribution to Hines and Baylis, and it is given in greater detail, particularly in Philip Grayson and Mark Blackburn's Medieval European Coinage, published in 1986, and throughout Michael Metcalfe's 3 volumes on flimsies and shatters, published in 1954. A more recent survey is included in Anna Gannon's B.M. Siligate of 2012 and Gareth Williams' series of papers on Anglo-Saxon gold coinage in the British Numismatic Journal, of which the first appeared in 2010, will cover the coins of the earlier period, particularly in the light of his investigation into their gold content. I shall deal here only briefly with this, leaving time to concentrate on discussing the differences between the scientific and numismatic chronologies brought into focus by the Anglo-Saxon Graves project. For the immediately post-Roman period in the 5th century, numismatic chronology has been re-evaluated in recent years, with a useful exchange of views on the nature of the coin use at that time, particularly in the light of the greatly increased evidence of hoards and sightlines which have come to light. 50 years ago, it was thought that after direct Roman rule had ended around 410, and the previous regular consignments of imperial coins in gold, silver and copper had ceased, Existing stocks of coin rapidly disappeared from circulation, and only a few later imperial, Byzantine, and other coins from the continent found their way to the former Roman provinces of Britannia. While the change brought about by these events was a reality, scholars since have been modifying those views of a post-Roman circulation, and the great increase in available evidence in recent years has accelerated this revision. The change in scale of evidence can be judged by comparing Riggle's still useful corpus of finds in the Sutton Hoo publication of 1975 with that of Abdi and Williams 2006, updated by Williams in the British Numismatic Journal for 2010. Discoveries continue to flow in, resulting in the promise of another update being prepared by Loriot and Bland. Work is very much ongoing and has covered areas such as the longevity and stages in the clipping of silver siliquate from the late Roman period and the extent of survival of Roman copper issues. The contemporary arrival of increasing numbers of Byzantine gold coins until an abrupt cessation in the middle of the reign of Heraclius, 610 to 640, and of Byzantine copper coins previously thought to have been modern Rosses. This has been recognised, and the role of these issues have been re-investigated. A particularly important find from this period, which highlights several of these coins, was the mixed gold and silver hoard of 50 coins with other material found at Patching in West Sussex in 1997, which had been deposited around 470. As we see on the slide, Patching included near-contemporary imperial Byzantine gold solidi and what are known as pseudo-imperial solidi, that is, official imitations produced by West European successor states such as the Visigoths in southern Gaul, down to the latest coin in the hoard, a Visigothic imitation of a solidus of Severus III, 461 to 465, struck posthumously in his name into the 470s. The hoard also demonstrates the survival of coins from the Roman period in Britain and of clipped siliquate, although, as Abdi points out, this does not necessarily prove that these issues had survived in local circulation until this time. Another small hoard from Oxborough, Norfolk, was found in 2001. It also included a Visigothic pseudo-solidus of Severus of the same type, but it had been mounted, and it also included a later gold Tremises of Julius Nepos, first period 474 to 5, dating the hoard to about 475, or just later, in fact just after the Patching hoard. There were no clipped siliquate in this find. As ever, we need more hoards for comparison to establish what was normal, if such a thing can ever be established. A survey of numismatic chronology of this period is contained in Williams' 2010. Before the Anglo-Saxons began to produce coins of their own around 600, in the form of gold Tremises, that is, the shillings of the Anglo-Saxon lock-rolls, Frankish Tremises were arriving in England in increasing numbers. The dating of the phases of the issue of these Frankish coins, which provide much of the evidence for early Anglo-Saxon numismatic chronology, are set out in the next table. This is a very summary outline of a highly complex subject, which is discussed at length in Pearson and Blackburn in 1986, and also by me in the recent volume. Many of the earlier problems of attribution in chronology in this series were resolved by the researches of the French scholar Jean Lafayette. The most important phrase for Anglo-Saxon numismatic chronology is the third the period of very plentiful base gold coins known as the national coinage, found in many Anglo-Saxon graves, including Sutton Hoo Mount 1. The problem is that few of these coins are being precisely datable, as they bear mainly mint and money names, and regal coins with names of kings who are historically datable are issued in limited numbers. Association with dated coins helps in establishing the broad period of some of these undated coins, and declining weight standards, and especially declining gold standard, are useful, if inexact, guides to date. The chronology of the replacement of gold coinage by a silver one in France is based on the re-identification of a number of very rare issues of historically dated coins, principally by Lafferty, but the close brackets provided by the related termini are secure, giving a date in the 660s for this change. This dating may be refined by future discoveries. The detail and discussion of this can also be found in the publication of the Anglo-Saxon Graves Project. In England, for the period before the Anglo-Saxons began to strike their own coins about 600, the coins found are occasional gold Byzantine and pseudo-Byzantine issues, but increasingly the gold traces of the Frankish mint and money series, which continue to arrive in England in quantity even after the start of Anglo-Saxon minting. As we have noted, these French missives are normally without issuers' names. Consequently, when an Anglo-Saxon grave or other context is dated by one of them, numismatists can generally only offer very wide brackets. The key Anglo-Saxon hoard of this period, indeed the only one, is from Cornwall, Hampshire, found in 1828. It comprised 191 gold chamises, including 3 blanks, about 70% of them English and 30% continental. It included a Byzantine chamises of Phocas, 602 to 610, which had been formerly mounted, a chamises of the Merovingian king Dagobert, 629 to 639, and a chamises of Archibald of Kent, 616 to 640. Unfortunately, we are unable to say precisely when, within the reign of the Archibald, these coins were produced. One of the Merovingian mint and money chamises was of the money Eligius, who is plausibly identified as the advisor to a succession of Merovingian kings before his appointment as Bishop of Noyon in 642. The date for the hoard of about 640 to 645, proposed by numismatists, is considered secure and is used as a fixed point in Anglo-Saxon numismatic chronology. It should also be noted that the mounted chamises of Phocas has been between 30 and 40 years old when deposited in this hoard. Anglo-Saxon chronology is summarized in this table, taken with the author's permission from Anaghan's survey of 2012. As in the case of Francia, most Anglo-Saxon coins of this period are undated. Indeed, from the start of English minting around 600 until the middle of the 8th century, only 2 series of regal coins are known. The gold chamises in the name of the Archibald of Kent, 616 to 40, and the silver shatters in the name of Old Frith of Northumbria, 685 to 705. Numismatists have divided the sequence into major phases shown in the table in the gold type, the Anno Domini dates based on overlapping English and continental boards and associations between dated and undated coins. The internal chronologies of the earlier gold phases remain uncertain because we have few hoards, and the places of minting are often not identified. The job of working out which differences are geographical and which chronological is still ongoing. The chronological order of the principal groups and types is, however, numismatists feel is secure. The increased number of larger hoards available since the 1940s for the silver shatter period, principally Aston round Oxfordshire, found in 1971-4, deposited about 710. Woodham Walter, Essex, found in 1994, deposited about 730. And Middleham, Norfolk, found 1982-4 and deposited about 760 to 65. These hoards mean that the chronological order of the major groups is clear, although the place in the sequence of some small groups is again uncertain. Important evidence for the later shatter period has been produced by excavations at Ribe in Denmark, with a strong presence of shatters of series X in the levels dated by dendrochronology to about 720, with coins of the porcupine series immediately below, provide another secure Anno Domini date in the later shatter sequence. The late phase of shatters sees the beginning of series Y, naming the securely dated kings of Northumbria, Eadbert 737 to 737 to 758 onwards, and the less securely dated issues of King Biona, who acceded in 749, and his sometime contemporary Ethelbert in East Anglia around the same date. Thereafter, broad pennies succeed with, in almost every case, the issuer's name displayed on the coin. A particularly important chronological point is the date of the introduction of the silver coinage in England, which numismatists have dated to about 680. Others have asked why this should be the fixed date, and could it not have been contemporary or even earlier than the introduction of the Merovingian silver coinage in the 660s. The pattern of overlapping hoards does not support this earlier date for the English change from gold to silver, and it is also important to look at the issues of Alfrith of Northumbria. It's rather difficult for me to read. Is that? Oh, that's better. The only early shatter with a regal date, with a regal name, is the issue of Alfred, King of Northumbria, 685 to 705. These coins conform to the slightly heavier weight standard of the primary shatters, and their fineness is also high, although below the highest standard of the earliest of the shatter series. It is not certain that the Northumbrian coinage at this time conformed exactly to the weight and fineness of contemporary southern issues, but broad similarity seems likely, as coins of each area circulated in the other. It is not known when the coins in Alfred's reign, or for how long, his surviving coins were issued, but on this basis, late southern primary shatters were likely still to have been in production at some date between AD 685 and 705. This fits the period which current numismatic dating proposes for the later series of shatters B, but it would not fit 20 years later. In the time remaining, I would like to look at the table I have prepared, comparing the numismatic datings with the datings from the scientific methods. I have given, in the first column is the grave, the origin of grave: Buckland, Dover, Gilton Ash, Kent, Crittwell, Essex, Sutton, Suffolk. In the second column is the main issues that affect dating which were contained in these hoards. The third column is the numismatic Anno Domini dates. The third column is the ranges of dating which the territorial and isosource methods have provided. And in the final column are the medians derived from these periods. These are the median dates proposed by the scientists themselves. While of course it's very important to keep an eye on the full details of the dating schemes, and what I would essentially like you to compare is the numismatic dates with the median dates. Now, on this part of the earliest part of the table, the scientific dates are very similar to the numismatic dates, which is very encouraging. There is one from Wilton Ash, 3 down, which is in fact later than the numismatic proposal. And this may be a clue to us numismatists that the whole Visigothic imitation of Old Thomisus of Justinian had possibly been around rather longer than we had given it credit for. But nonetheless, the groups on this, the context on this table are essentially providing us with the same sort of dates from numismatic evidence and from the scientific evidence. The second part of this table, we find that the first 2 burials also agree in date with the scientific evidence. But then, from Finglesham Kent onwards, the numismatic dates are consistently later than the modern ones. If we continue again to the third part, of the table, we see that it continues. The dates continue to be about 20 years earlier from the scientific dates than it is from the numismatic ones. Right to the end, every single one. If we go back to the beginning of the second part of Table 5, we see that the dates, the median dates, are 656 to 663, 656 to 663, 659 to 664, 646 to 650, 656 to 663. Then we go on to the next one. 665 to 662, 648 to 653, 659 to 664, 656 to 663, 656 to 663. Now, I think I would point out that these scientific dates are very, very similar, and yet they cover graves which have within them a very wide range of coins, which the numismatics has proved are successive and not of the same period. This date, 565 to 563, covers 2 looped Merovingian misses of the national series, base gold. Another one of the same. A looped base gold solidus of Sigebert III, 639 to 656, which is worn, accompanied by a base gold shilling of Padder. Now, in numismatists have shown that base gold solidi of someone like Sigebert III were not around normally alongside base gold shillings of Padder. The next one is a counterfeit missus of the Constantine series and a loop Padder. Another Padder, going on to in the next one, a coin of Mundus, a coin of Dagobert, 629 to 39, and with the coin of Dagobert, I'm essentially pointing out here is that while the scientific dates remain about the same, the coins which are included in the graves range over a wide period which numismatics has established, to my view, securely are succeeding types and not issued or even current at the same time. The one particular point I'd like to draw attention to is the Fingalsham Kent group. There's a coin of Sigebert III, 639 to 656, with a coin of Padder. Now, the Sigebert III coin was very worn and clearly had been around for many years. And if the date of 656 that group 639 to 56 is used as the basis of dating the scientific or testing the scientific evidence, it will give an earlier date which is too early. The St. Peter's tip, the coin engraved 134 in St. Peter's tip, although it wasn't part of this investigation, is also an extremely worn solidus of Sigebert III, unfortunately unaccompanied by any other coin. If we look at St. Mary's Station, Southampton, that is the one second from the bottom, it included 2 skeets and also 3 impressions. Now, these impressions were not coins, but they were probably the remains of imitations. Andrew Oddie and I have studied a group of these impressions on silver foil, and they appear to be the upper and lower sides of forgeries filled with lead or lead alloy. What this shows is that the scientific techniques at present cannot separate the dates of graves holding a series of succeeding types, both from Merovingian France and from England. So I think that is something which needs to be looked at. We all need to spend a great deal more time to work on this problem, but I can envisage a time when the scientific results will mean that instead of coins providing dates for the levels, the scientific results will be providing dates for the coins without close numismatic dates. But I'm afraid that time has not yet come. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion, for a spirited and intelligent presentation which highlights probably the most significant issue that we face with the chronometric dating of the UC. I would just make 2 points, if I may. The first is that, of course, when we radiocarbon date something which has a and a shaft in it, then of course we are looking at the date of the shaft as the latest point. So the fact that radiocarbon date is later than the Dagobert simply, I think, supports, broadly speaking, the radiocarbon determination. The other point I make, and I don't want to get into the statistics because I didn't understand them properly, is of course at the right-hand side you have the median dates, but in your 4th column you have the full range. Now, admittedly, we've gone through the discussion about whether we can seriously propose, in most of those cases, that actually the real date of the grave is at the extreme late end of the range, in which case quite a lot of the perceived problem disappears. By no means all of it, it brings the 2 sets of determinations together. But there's a whole set of objections and questions that have to go around that. So I just wanted to say, perhaps things are not quite as far apart as your spirited presentation suggested. And certainly from the point of view of the archaeologists who've collaborated with Marion in the volume in putting forward different perceptions and arguments, we wouldn't regard this either as a fatal face-to-face or something that will not be resolved in the future. Can I, having said that, invite any comments or questions? Marion, do you have anything you want to say?
Yes, thank you very much. And again, it strikes me as if you've got a really, really small sample of coins compared to the big sample you've taken of other material. So I really wonder whether statistically this is fair, really.
I can answer that. I think statistically it is fair. We would have liked to have dated more created coins in, but actually the number of burials with shatters in is not very great. Particularly the number of furnished burials with shatters in is not very great, and too many of them are old finds for which we cannot get access to the bone, or the bone has been lost. So for us, an absolute priority would be getting more determinations on coin-dated graves, or graves with shatters in, as a real matter of priority. One of the problems is, I think it is just fate and the result of a small sample, is that whenever you radiocarbon date a coin-dated grave, hoping that it is going to give you a fixed point, some problem comes up. I had the issue myself at Bottom-Argy with the coin of Offa. There is a nice mid-7th century late shattered group excavated from Tower Hamlets with an aberrant radiocarbon date, which almost certainly comes from the poor quality of the bones and the laboratory problem. And there are other issues with some of the dates at Bottom-Argy where, let's face it, even with the precision that we're using, or the radiocarbon dates we're using at 95% probability, that means that 1 in 20 is going to be wrong. There's going to be a small bit of a statistical technique. So I think we're being fair. I think we're being fair when we're setting out to challenge numismatic chronology. It is simply the fact that there are not many of these graves out there that are accessible, and as a priority one would want to date more of them. There is a question at the back.
I'm looking at this as a statistician. I was going to make a point that you made that you need to be looking at the posterior density estimates rather than the medians. Medians make it look a much bigger difference than if you look at the posterior density estimates. And I haven't had time to digest all of this, but I don't know if Alex has done the audience. Quite a lot of the posterior density estimates are consistent with the numismatic plates, albeit at the extreme convention. The statistical thought that comes to my mind is whether there's in some way some sort of systematic bias or some acknowledged source of error which would push the posterior density estimates somewhat higher and make them much more consistent with the numismatic dates. I know nothing about the radiocarbon dating with Alex. That's also comment on this.
Perhaps Alex should comment immediately on that.
Okay, I'm sort of with you in agreeing that I don't think the difference is quite as bad as it perhaps is apparent to me. I think we could the gold, the pale gold coinage, is that right, Marion? I think that can wobble probably by 15 years, and we could probably reach perhaps an agreement that would make neither side happy, but both of us sort of could live with. I think that there might be a bit more of a problem with the primary shatters, really, which really need to probably go at least a decade earlier than Marion is comfortable with. Now, Sam Lucy asked about if the later coins are if the later graves are disproportionately affected by more fish in the later period. There is no evidence of that at all from the stable isotope evidence that we have. I'm the first to say that isn't cut and dried. There's plenty of science still left to do there. But as far as we can tell, there's not got more fish at the end of the sequence than there is earlier. Where we have real, historical dates, the radiocarbon dates do fit with them. So this is an issue to do with the numismatic dating of the English sequence. The other thing that's possible is that the way we've modelled it is that it has an abrupt end. Furnished burial finishes. There are new techniques, new kinds of model that are now available where we could perhaps model a tailing off of a decrease in the frequency of furnished burial. But then the thing against that is that independently the female sequence, the male sequence, and the combined sequence give you pretty much exactly the same answer. That's moving by 2 or 3 years in the median. So I mean, really, row below the posterior density, and they're practically identical. So I don't know. Maybe we need to relook at. You need to relook at your Merovingian coins and do more work on. Whatever it's called.
Yes, all I would say about the when there seems to be more agreement in the early period than in the later period is that in the earlier period the numismatic brackets are often very long, and this is because we simply can't see what the currency life of certain issues was. So that at that period our issue dates are long. When we contract them a bit, and particularly I think when the graves contain heirloom pieces in very poor condition, very worn condition, that have obviously been around in a numismatist view for about 30 or 40 years. And this is on the question of the end of furnished graves. It's clear from the examples, even the ones that we've just got before us here, that it's often in Series B of the shatters that they are the latest in the series graves. Now, it's quite interesting to look to see why don't we get Series A, why don't we get Series C? Well, we could say we don't get Series C because it just was later. But what about Series A? Well, one of the reasons might be that the Series B coins have a cross on the reverse. The Series A coins don't have that, and the Series C coins don't have that. And we know that the types of coins also affected when they were used and who used them. We notice in the Wilton Cross, it was first used with the busts of the 2 emperors showing. Later it was turned around to show a cross. We think of Saint Germanus, who, meeting the future Saint Genevieve, hung around her neck a Roman bronze coin with a cross on it. So that here, these people were considering what the types of the coins were. And Anna has given us a very detailed study of the uses of these different images and their parallels elsewhere in artifacts. So I think that there are really things like that involved. But it certainly wouldn't push the dating back. Because according to us, the Series B shatters, they started at the end of the 7th century and went on into about 700. So, again, we're not far apart as you keep saying this. I think we all have to go back and do our homework again.
I just make the point that not only is the radiocarbon date consistent with the earlier coin issues, it is also consistent with a series of very tight dendrochronological dates from continental sequences as well. Yes. This issue does appear to be specifically an issue around the late 7th century and the coin.
But we don't see, I'm not an archaeologist, you know much better than I, there don't seem to be these dates for the early shadow period. But it's not on such numbers.
Leslie.
Well, yes, actually.
Leslie and Anna.
Actually, Marion's pretty much answered the question that I wanted to raise, which was to do with the very striking discrepancy that we've got no problems with the early Anglo-Saxon build-types or the substandard build-types, but that they are occurring with the Series B shatters, so that's, I think, entirely been dealt with.
But again, as we say, the dendrochronological dates for some of the shatters, like the Series X at Reading, equals 720, that does constrict, that's another fixed point. And it's constricting. We can't infinitely expand the early shatters.
I don't think anybody is suggesting that. I mean, as somebody who comes at it from an archaeological point of view, thinking of coins as material culture, I see two fixed points, Cromwell and Elfrith. And I see no reason myself why one should not be looking to an early dominating Elfrith's reign and being a bit more flexible about the metrological link. So I can see a number of ways in which you can pass. I know this is theoretical, but I see a number of ways in which you can pass the or rearrange the literal sequences. But we've rehearsed all that in the book, and we have our own positions. But Anna, you had something to say.
Question from Alex, really. When you talk about your posterior density, and you tell me that in the recipe that you make, you have prior beliefs thrown in. Can one ask if these prior beliefs can be flexible and can take into account other things, other considerations, like numismatic considerations in existence? Or is it a set that's set?
This is the only function of the phone, so I should be wrong with her.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we did all that. Okay, so obviously we did our original models that include the archaeological sequence, and then in the chapter, I think it's the women's graves, because only the women's graves have coins, we did models which used firstly the actual absolute dates of the coins, as in, you know, it's got a Dagobert on it, it can't be before 629. And then we also did, Marion gave us the date she thought the latest coin was in the grave, and we tried to marry the two and they just wouldn't work. And then later on, Marion and I worked together with the team to try and model from Marion's perspective. So in her chapter 9, I've done some specific models about coins that again try to incorporate, you know, I can't remember the name of the king, but there's a king where you think the coin is more likely to be struck later rather than earlier in the reign because of the mythology, and then there's something to do with another coin you wanted to say, well, it's very worn, so it had a use life of a certain number of years. So all of that I've modelled with, you know, Marion told me what the prior information was and I've modelled it, and we've tried to make the two sides meet, and we're not quite there yet.
I fully acknowledge to everyone that we all need to go back to, once again, to the roots of our subject and look at all the dating of the French hoards, at the dating of the English hoards, and so on. But this is a mammoth task, because the dating of the French hoards depends a lot on first of all, the identification of the coins. I mean, it's only recently that a certain series of the petitions of Provence have been, as I see it, sorted out. They were misidentified in the past, and this, of course, gave us all false information on which to try and build.
One more question from Frank, and then we'll break this evening.
Thank you. I feel the wish to see the same numbers in the middle column and in the right column. And I would take a different point of view. I think the archaeological chronology with the scientific dating is true, so the right column is true. And on the other hand, I would say the numismatic chronology is true. So in mean column, and what are the difference? We have only two possibilities from my point of view to think about the difference. One is the methodological question. So it's an offset possible from different methodologies. You explained it. How do you think? You are dating after the youngest coin. The archaeologists don't. They estimate the mean time, which is a huge difference. And on the other hand, I think we are talking about certain social practices. Certain social practices make these great assemblages come together. And so my question would be, is there a concept, an idea of social practice which makes these difference of about 20 years explainable?
On that note, we will go away. It's tea time.